Mastering strategic thinking, the hidden power of abductive logic. Do you know what the secret of Sherlock Holmes in solving crimes was? But just a minute, before I tell you about it, one of my mentees said, "Your Arulde story is nice to listen, but I don't know what abductive logic is, sir. How has he applied it?" Well, a valid question. So let's understand abductive logic. It's also known as abductive logical reasoning. It's a form of logical inference introduced by the American philosopher Charles Sanders Peirce way back in 1868. Unlike deductive reasoning, which draws specific conclusion, and inductive reasoning, which makes generalization, abductive reasoning is about making logical guesses. "What?" said George. "How can guessing be used for deducing or evaluating something?" "It's true, George," I said. "Abductive reasoning is the tool for problem solving and is frequently used in the fields of medicine, detective work, scientific theory formation, machine learning, and other applications. It involves creating a likely explanation for a set of observations or facts. And it's less about reaching a definite conclusion and more about exploring possibilities." Thus, the defining characteristics of abductive logic is that the conclusion obtained does not flow logically from the assumptions made about the situation. They are just the best explanation at hand. Hence, abductive thinking has been described as an informed guessing, or taking your best shot, or offering the best explanation. It's akin to a doctor making a diagnosis on an unconscious patient. Dave too intuitively used abductive reasoning and followed the steps, even though he was not trained to think on these lines. Let's look at the steps. First is observation. He had observed that he had a problem, and that was the disruption in sales and the low quality of service being offered by him. Second step is the inference. He felt from his observation that the problem was because people were phoning him up and checking what was available when other customers were at the shop. It was causing a disruption. Also, the quality of the service was getting affected as he was forgetting the orders that many of them were telling him. Third step is the hypothesis. Friends, hypothesis is an assumption, an idea that is proposed so that it can be tested to see if it might be true. His hypothesis or his inference led to the hypothesis that a digital messaging solution could solve his problem. More so because most of his customers were digitally savvy. Step 4. Best guess, or also called hypothesis verification. As most of his customers were having smartphones and were using WhatsApp, his best shot would be to start requesting his customers to message him on WhatsApp. In his case, the best guess was a success. So friends, that's how Dave unknowingly applied abductive logic. It is more about exploring the possibilities to form a possible solution and less about reaching a definite solution. Using WhatsApp was not a proven solution for his problem, but he felt it could. It had a number of variables that he managed, like using voice messages, creating communities, etc. But the result he obtained was beyond what he had expected. For Dave, his hypothesis was right, and his hypothesis verification that his informed guess worked. Thus, in management terms, the business strategy developed by Dave was a winner. I myself did not know the name for this process of logical reasoning till late, even though it was a process we often use during fault diagnosis in aviation. Normally, post-flight, when a pilot reports a fault, he also describes the effect it has caused. The engineer, after reading the fault and listening to the pilot, unknowingly applies abductive logic to identify a set of components that could be responsible and makes an informed guess that X could be the defective component. He could be bang on right or even off the mark. But like many of us, was unknowingly using abductive logic in his day-to-day activity. The fact, friends, is most of us use this process regularly in everyday problem solving. And this was the same method of reasoning used extensively by Sherlock Holmes to solve crime. And he used to always beat the Scotland Yard officers in solving crimes. So friends, au revoir for now. This is Success Captain, Group Captain Ranjit Isaac, your performance augmenter and brand strategist signing off. Jai Hind.